There we go. Looks like we're live. All right, let's go, Pelosi.
Nonetheless, we believe in the rule of law, and that's what our country is about, and no person is above the law, not even the President of the United States, not even a former President of the United States.
Folks, that's Pelosi there, as you know. Welcome to GAMcast for Wednesday, August 10th, 2022. Sorry I've been out the last couple of days, but I had to leave town, and there was just no real good way to do a live stream. The equipment just isn't up to snuff, and I had a bunch of other challenges. So we're going to get you all caught up to date. Normally when that happens, there's slow news days, but unfortunately for us, they were not slow news days. But on the good side, I would really need, and I would have told you this Monday had I gone live, I would have told you this, that we needed to calm down and wait and see what the reaction of people is about Mar-a-Lago. So we're going to go into the Trump raid. We're going to bring you up to speed. We're just going to have to take you back to the Obama administration just so you understand what Mar-a-Lago is really about. We're going to bring you up to speed on that. We're going to cover Taiwan and China, the tax bill, and a bunch of other things. We got a ton of stuff to catch up, and it's going to be a real struggle to do it in 40 minutes, but we are going to do it. Now, if there are some things that I have to bump, I'll bump them to Thursday and Friday, and we'll make sure you get them caught up. But I literally am looking at about 12 windows here, which is unusual. Normally I have more like 6 windows, but there's a bunch of windows. The good news is most all of them deal with Mar-a-Lago. So let's get right into that, folks. What you were looking for, what you were waiting for to see after they pulled this stunt was to see the reaction of the mainstream media and the Democrat Party. And I understand I repeat myself because the mainstream media is nothing more than the communication arm of the Democrat Party. You have to understand that. If you think they're anything other than that, you are mistaken, right? And this is probably not the podcast or live stream for you. That's what they are. What you needed to see after this unprecedented act, right, is what was their reaction. Now, you just saw one of them. Now, Pelosi, even though she's Speaker of the House, she's an awful human being. She's always been an awful human being. She's always been an awful politician. She's just gotten worse. Why has she gotten worse? Because people have permitted her to get worse. She came in, and her whole shtick was, well, we got to have a woman, so we got a woman. And then she just began to run roughshod all the rules, and there was never check, never any balance. People, if you tried to criticize her, you were criticizing women, and so she got away with stuff. Now, she also coincided with Barack Obama coming in, who was the most left-wing administration we've ever had, right? Going back to the Woodrow Wilson days and the FDR days, far more leftist than them. And so she was able to garnish this power. And we talk about this all the time, but you can't say it enough. Basically, from that 2006 elevation of her to the Speaker of the House, and then later through the years until she eventually got taken out in 2010 in the Barack Obama era, what happened is you had about 12, 15 years of formative years of reporters. So you've got all these young people now who are now in their 30s and starting in their 40s. They don't know anything other than it's perfectly proper for you to go listen to Nancy Pelosi like a lapdog and just repeat whatever she says. And then whenever a Republican comes in, that's whenever they say, that's what you do. With Nancy, what do you want me to repeat? And that's what they do. Now, I mean, again, that little bit that was on NBC. That anybody that doesn't challenge that, like, what are you talking about? No person is above the law, not even a president of the United States, not even a former president. Who suggested that they were? No one's ever suggested that. I've been following politics for over 45 years, and I recall Nixon being impeached. I remember watching that stuff, right? Like, what are you talking about? Well, he wasn't impeached, but there were hearings about Watergate, and he was going to be impeached. He had to resign. So, I mean, this idea that somebody thinks somebody is above the law, and let's set this aside. So let's say for the sake of the argument that, okay, we all agree no one's above the law. Who said anything about a raid with 30 yeah, you heard me right, 30 FBI agents, folks? A raid. Now, we all know about the white collar, and because of the people on the left, I'm not going to pull up the old Dave Chappelle bit, which I was going to do. He's got a great bit about how white collar criminals are treated differently than blue collar criminals, right? We all know that you don't need to roll up on a former president of the United States. You could have just asked him, hey, and in fact, there's already information out there. We knew about it. They showed up in June, a little over a month ago. They came in, and the Trump people down there said, sure, you want to come in? I heard Trump even showed up a bit. They said, where are the documents? They showed them where they were. They cooperated. They could have called again and said, hey, we'd like to drop by. They know that. So nobody said anything about being above the law. Nobody said anything about a raid. But again, get back to the point. Folks, obviously it's unprecedented. So if you're hearing from people, this is unprecedented, it's going to unite the party behind Trump, this is going to, even Scott Adams, who I like Scott Adams, the Dilbert guy, he literally tweeted out the other day that if they continue to go after Trump, he's going to cause the black vote to vote Republican. Folks, these are takes of people who do not understand what's going on. If you're listening to any of that, you need to move on to some other podcast or live stream. They're wasting your time. We all know it's unprecedented. But folks, unprecedented describes the entire Biden regime. I mean, everything's unprecedented. Let me give you an example. This is what I had in the can I was going to cover yesterday or the day before if I'd gone live. So Kamala Harris is now 6 tie-breaking votes from breaking the record. Now, I want you to understand, folks, we're not 2 years into the Biden regime. Not even 2 years. It'll be 2 years, right? January 20th of 2023. So we're a little over a year and a half in there, okay? And she's already 6 votes. So she's going to clean right through it. Tells you she's broken ties in the Senate more than in less than half the time. She's almost got the record. What does that tell you? It tells you that they're ramming crap up and down that they can't get through on a simple majority, folks. They can't even get a simple majority in the Senate. They have to have the vice president come in and break the tie. That tells you that they're not interested in the least bit about dealing with the minority. They're not interested in any sort of rule of law. This is totalitarianism, okay? And so if somebody comes in and says, oh, this is unprecedented, it's not going to do anything. They did it. They knew. Folks, think about this. Let's just think about this, all right? We're going to get into the magistrate that signed off on this, but the magistrate, and I'll talk to you why that's important in a minute, he was not an Article III judge. He's not a lifetime appointee. He can be fired tomorrow if you want, right? He does not have the same life appointment that an Article III judge has. He's below a district court judge, right? He signed. Now, you think for 1 millisecond when he got that thing, Donald J. Trump, oh, okay, sure, no problem, maybe sign this. Well, he knew what he was signing off on. The FBI knew what he was signing off on. Merrick Garland knew what he was signing off on. Christopher Wray, the FBI, they all knew what they were doing. You think that didn't occur to them? I mean, folks, Trump can get out there on Truth Social and tweet something, and everybody pays attention. You think you send 30 FBI agents to his house at Mar-a-Lago? You think that the millisecond that happens, that's not national news? They knew. Of course they knew. What are they looking for? They're looking for the reaction. I say this all the time. We're in this bad problem where they lack compunction. They just keep pushing and pushing and pushing and pushing, and there's no downside. Oh, so what's the downside here? All right, well, there's a reaction. Oh, okay, well, maybe we overstepped our bounds. We're very sorry. We won't do that again. Okay, nobody's going to be perp-walked. Nobody's going to be arrested. And you're not even getting that. Again, that's why I paid Pelosi, right? She says, oh, well, no one's above the law and not even the president. And so basically, translation alert, it was justified. Nothing wrong with that. Nothing to see here at all. Okay, well, let's see what some other people said. I'm going to come back to Chuck Schumer. So let's see what, I wasn't going to do it in that order, but here we go right here. Dan Rather, okay, so this is a mainstream media figure. Got a lot of influence, folks. Was a huge voice back in the day. All right, so it started like this, August 8th, all right, and he goes, overheard in Florida, knock, knock, who's there? The feds. Trump world, law and order. Perhaps lock her up isn't so funny in MAGA world tonight. All right. So we got the mainstream media out there. They think it's a joke. They think it's funny. They're not in any way. I mean, folks, 20 years ago, not even 20, even less than 20 years ago, this would have been, oh my God, let's see the information. What are you doing this? Why are you doing this? Why do you need to raid? Why couldn't you just work? I mean, there would have been all kinds of questions. No, it's just a joke. What about Eric Swalwell? And again, so we all heard Pelosi. Schumer, to be fair, is basically saying nothing. Oh, I think I got rid of Swalwell. Oh, well. Anyway, Swalwell, I accidentally got rid of him. I thought I was getting rid of Dan Rather. Doesn't matter. I can tell you what he said. I remember the tweet. The tweet basically was, Trump has the warrant. Why doesn't he show it? Why doesn't he show us the warrant? Why didn't he show us the warrant? Right? And there's nothing wrong here. I mean, they went and they did process, which is another thing you're hearing from Democrats. Folks, everybody knows that's not the point. Everybody knows that. I mean, first and foremost, Trump's lawyers right now are telling him, don't talk to the press. Don't do this. If you have a raid, that means they think you've done something. You don't want to open your mouth and talk and give them information they wouldn't otherwise have. So Swalwell knows that. Not to mention, folks, I remember when I was growing up, there was something about America that was different and special. Something called the rule of law, something called the Constitution, something called, it starts with an I, until proven guilty. What is that term? I guess I could remember. But Swalwell, apparently, he thinks it's different. Swalwell, and again, this is a prominent member of the majority party in this country. He didn't just think this, right? He didn't just tell his wife this. He got on the Twitter, broadcast it to his millions of followers, and says, hey, he's got the warrant. Why don't he show it to everybody? Why don't he come out and explain it? I'm sorry, Swalwell. Again, I thought we were innocent until proven guilty. You're the government. You released the warrant. You explain to us why you need to go after somebody, right? Explain to me. And folks, now we've got about 48 hours later, and we see there's no pushback, none at all, and there's not going to be. So guess what, folks? If you thought you were living in a constitutional republic, right? If you thought there was something called the rule of law, you are wrong. Now, I've been saying this for a long time, that we're in a bad place and we're going to a worse place. And folks, this is consistent with what I've said. This is exactly what I predicted. It's just one more domino that's going to fall. And there'll be more. They're probably going to indict Trump now. I think the chances of Trump getting indicted have, probably tripled yesterday. And I don't mean by the DOJ. I have a feeling the DOJ probably won't indict him. But he probably will be indicted by one of the prosecutors, Letitia James in New York, or Fannie Willis here in Fulton County, or somebody else. And again, that's part of what they're doing, and it may not be. I'm going to cover that in a minute, because a lot of people are saying, oh, Trump just got the Republican nomination, and he just walked into 2024. Folks, if you believe that, then, I got, oceanfront property in places where there are no oceans that I can sell you. If you think that, you're just not paying attention. Because, listen, this is not going to unite anybody. It's not going to get anybody behind anybody. Again, what you need to see the mainstream media push back, which they're not. You need to see prominent members. Doesn't necessarily have to be the House Speaker. Doesn't necessarily have to be the Senate Majority Leader, but you need some pushback somewhere from somebody prominent. We're not getting it. And we'll see what happens with the quote-unquote independents, but I promise you, what you're going to see is they're just going to look at this and go, well, he must have done something wrong. Well, he probably should be prosecuted. And, folks, they do this because it works. I wish it didn't. So let's get to what the Republican Party's going to do. I was going to try to find out what the turtle had to say, but luckily for us and for me in putting together a show, we've got Tim Scott. And Tim Scott's out there hawking a book, right? So he's going off on, I think it looks like CBS here, and he's trying to hawk a book. So he's on CBS this morning hawking his book, and of course, they asked him about Trump, just as I said, right? They knew before they did all this that it was going to be a big deal. They knew that, and they did it anyway. They didn't care. There's no consequences. We're not scared. We're not worried at all. Let's see what Tim Scott had to say. Again, this is a prominent member of the Republican Party. There are only 50 Republican senators. He's one of them. One in this entire country, 330 million people. Let's see what he has to say. Maybe we're not going to see what he has to say. 114 is where he is. Come on. All right, let's refresh it and see if we can get it. All right, come on. Probably going to have to fast forward it. All right.
He's here because he's the author of a new...
More questions in my
FBI.
It's funny. I don't know why I'm having these technical difficulties, but it's unbelievable how these machines do this. But for some reason, all right. So let's get to 114 because that's where it starts. All right, go.
Why continue to focus on President Trump?
Yeah, but why this is such a dangerous moment in our history, and a lot of people have pointed this out, is because we are divided.
Yes.
There are the wings of our government that are supposed to be nonpartisan, but now seem to be politicized. And one of those wings is the FBI. So do you think the FBI, do you still believe and trust in the FBI to do its job, even with a former president, in a nonpartisan way? Or do you believe, as the former president says, that the FBI is executing a witch hunt?
Well, we've had the FBI before the Judiciary Committee just in the last 2 weeks trying to figure out why they do what they do. And there's been lots of questions before this raid about whether or not the FBI is doing their job apolitical. And we don't know the answer to that question yet. This is probably
So we don't know the answer to that question, you see. We don't know the answer to that question. And we have to wait and see how things turn out. That's your opposition, folks, to these people. I mean, are you kidding me? Now, if I were them when I pulled the raid, I would have thought somebody would come out, and I'm sure Rand Paul has, right? I've been off the grid a little bit, but we'll get to it. But I'm sure he has. But here you go right here, a fairly prominent, person, just got reelected, no real danger of not being elected in that state. And, we're not really sure if they're being apolitical. What do you, I mean, come on. I mean, are you a moron or do you think we're morons? Which is it? It continues.
FBI.
This is going to raise more questions, in my opinion.
It's going to raise more questions. And again, folks, I want you to understand here. It'd be one thing if they had announced an indictment and they said, we're indicting Donald Trump for interrupting a proceeding in Congress, the act we've talked about a lot, and we're going to come arrest him, and we're going to have it all on camera and all that. That'd be one thing, right? I still would have a problem with it potentially not being apolitical. I would still have a problem with the whole thing about, trying to say that, interrupting a proceeding of Congress is even a crime in the way in which they're claiming it's a crime. All these things we've talked about many, many times here. But you did a raid over documents that are in dispute. You did a raid with 30 FBI agents. You know darn well you only need one of them, okay? You don't need 30. You don't need to do a raid. What do? You could have gone into court and could have said, hey, we've asked him, he hasn't turned him over. Will you give us a court order? And then we could have a hearing. We could have seen the hearing. And the judge could say, you know what, Donald Trump, I'm going to order you to turn over these documents to a third-party arbitrator. I'm going to order you to give them to the government. I'm going to order you bring them into this courtroom. And if I want this to be done within 7 days, and if you don't do it, then I'm going to authorize the FBI to go. Everybody would have been like, sure, fine, no problem, right? Folks, it wasn't done that way. Thereby, ergo, it's political, of course. You did a raid, it's political. End of story. You don't have to be a genius. You don't have to have spent 1 millisecond in law school to know raids against white-collar people are political. They're meant to send a message. You're a bad guy. You're a criminal. You've done something wrong. You're so dangerous, I got to send 30 people. And we'll get the news, but we'll see. They probably didn't just show up with handguns. I guarantee you they had rifles, they had SWAT teams, the whole bit. I mean, this is just a joke. And here you go. I mean, it's typical stuff from the opposition party. It continues.
We need to let this play out and see exactly what happens, but we should...
Oh, we got to let it play out. I don't need to let it play out. I just played it out for you. If they had done what I said, I would be saying what he said. Well, we're going to go before the judge. I mean, they're going to lay out their evidence. They're going to say what the dispute is. We're going to all see it as citizens, and the judge is going to rule. And if I don't agree with the judge, we're going to follow what the judge says. He says 7 days. You got to give it to this third party, and then they're going to look through it together in camera. Both sides going to look at him. Okay, that's fine. And then, or if he just said turn him over, and Trump didn't, that I'd have to say we'll have to wait and see. I don't have to wait and see when you pull a raid. Give me a break.
Stunned and surprised and shocked at what happened yesterday. The real question is, A, what is the Federal Records Act? And B, what are we talking about? It has to be something of incredible magnitude for at least my side of the aisle to say that was warranted. Without that, I think we're going to find ourselves in a very big mess as it relates to the credibility of the FBI.
Okay, we're going to find ourselves? Where's he been? We're going to talk about Comey. We're going to go back into the time machine 6 years ago. But anyway.
Any concern that they're going to find anything at the Mar-a-Lago?
Well, I think we should really, as
okay, now again, I'm going to stop with this and move on. But a couple things here. First off, this is CBS this morning. And I keep hearing all the time from the Biden regime and all these people that, all of this stuff needs to look like America. So I'm going to just tell you this. And again, it shouldn't matter. I wish it didn't matter. It doesn't matter to me. But I'm just filling you in here. And for those of you who are listening, not watching, you don't know this. So there's 4 people here. Tim Scott, who is a black man. All right, fine. Then you've got the 3 hosts, a white male, a black female, and a black man. Now, I'm pretty sure 75% of America, 3 out of 4, is not black in this country. Let's set aside Tim Scott because he's a guest, so whatever. Let's say that's random. All right, then you got 3 people seated there. I'm pretty sure 66.7% of the country is not black. All right. I thought people needed to look like America. Man, I'm sure they're the most qualified people out there. Now, the guy, and I don't know who he is. I've seen him before, but he's not anybody prominent. Are you concerned they're going to find some things down there? Concerned about that? It's a document dispute over presidential records, for Christ's sakes. What could possibly be the law that he's breaking? And again, we've been following this. They've been going back and forth. There's some tension. He thinks he's entitled to certain documents. They think he's not. This is not raid-worthy, folks. There was nobody in there that was, locked up in a hole that maybe couldn't breathe or something. So let me get to part of what's going on with this. Our friend Molly Hemingway over at The Federalist The guy who created the Russia collusion hoax in 2016 and orchestrated the widespread coordinated campaign to change election laws and processes in 2020 admits this is about the regime rigging yet another election. Folks, if you've been listening to this podcast, and a lot of you have, by the way, I've almost forgot, this is the anniversary. Had I gone live 2 days ago, it would have been. I started the podcast August 8th of 2021. So this is the sort of next time we broadcast. So this is the anniversary date. A lot of you have been here from the beginning. And if you have been, a lot of you joined lately, that's fine. You know about our friend Mark Elias. Who is Mark Elias? Mark Elias is a very, very prominent Democrat lawyer, okay? He makes multi-million dollars a year. He travels around, right? He gets all this stuff. He has these lavish dinners. I mean, you just get the whole thing here. And his whole shtick is to get Democrats elected and have power. He is Exhibit A, like Nancy Pelosi is, of the type of person they want in power. Now, he projects, I'm just all about free and fair elections. I just want anybody to vote, to cast a legal vote. No. He only wants Democrats to win. And he's one of these persons that goes around, asks judges that have been democratically appointed and that lack compunction, they don't care about the rule of law, to do whatever you need them to get done. And then, again, like I said, there's no downside. He gets the system rigged. You try to unrig it, no big deal. Let me give you a perfect example about these 2020 election laws, because he was the general counsel of, going back, 5 or 6 last campaigns. He was Obama's general counsel, he's Hillary's general counsel, he's general counsel, all these campaigns. He did the same thing for Biden. He went and got all the election laws changed. Example, he's the architect of Pennsylvania having mail-in balloting, even though the legislature never did it. So he rigs the system, mail-in balloting, same day in Pennsylvania and other places. That's the way it is. Then the legislatures come in afterwards, after the 2020 debacle, and they go, hey, we don't do that. So we're clarifying no mail-in voting. He then goes to the court. Oh, my God, it's Jim Crow. You're suppressing votes, and it's hurting minorities. What are you talking about? How can saying you can't mail your ballot in now that there's no longer COVID, what does that got to do with it? That's Mark Elias, okay? And again, folks, they're doing this to us. They're whipsawing us everywhere you look all the time. That's how it works. So you go look at election law 2019, you look at election law today in Pennsylvania, and you will see it is far more Democrat-friendly than it has ever been. They didn't get it done through the legislature. Mark Elias got it done. So this is what he does. So here he is right here tweeting August 8th. The media is missing the really, really big reason why the raid today is a potential blockbuster in American politics. 18 U.S.C. Section 2071, concealment, removal, or mutilation generally. Here it is highlighted. Whoever shall have in custody of any record, proceeding, map, book, document, you got federal stuff, Trump, in Mar-a-Lago, right, shall forfeit his office and be disqualified from holding any office under the United States. There it is, folks. If you're watching this on the YouTube or the Rumbles, you can see it. I can see it. It's highlighted. He highlighted it. He doesn't want Trump to run for office. Now, this is the guy who everywhere you turn around, I believe in democracy, free and fair elections, but he don't want Trump running. Now, he doesn't. He wants Trump running. And I'm going to get to that before we close the show. They definitely want Trump running, folks. They don't care about Trump so much. And believe me, if you think these people that think they gave it to Trump, you're not even close. Not even close. But here's the point here, folks. And then I want you to understand this. Mark Elias, I forget where he went, but he went into one of the big leagues, okay? He's been out there. I can tell you he knows he's lying. And you know why he knows he's lying? Because everybody went to law school, or anybody generally familiar with this. The Congress, 18 U.S.C., right, Section 2071, you can't override the Constitution. The Constitution has 2 requirements to be President of the United States. Natural-born citizen, 35 years old. That's it. Zip, zilch, nada. Congress can't pass a law that says, and you also got to make $20,000 a year. Or you also have to have achieved a BA in college. They can't do that. They can't override the Constitution, and he darn well knows it. He darn well knows it. But again, that's all this is about, is like trying to create some noise out there. So let's talk about the noise that's going on. So, folks, there's some noise out there. The guy who signed the warrant, again, he's a magistrate. Magistrates basically are selected by the district court. They tend to have, depending on the size of the court, Southern District of Florida probably has 10, 15 of them. That's about the same size as the Northern District of Georgia, where I'm a member of the Southern District of Florida District Court as well. So you probably got about 10 or 15 of them. And they tend to handle overflow from the district court, and they tend to handle things like signing off on warrants and things of that nature. So they're not an Article III judge. But a lot of people are talking out there about the fact that this guy, Bruce Reinhard, happened to be worked for Hillary Clinton, has ties to Hillary Clinton, has anti-Trump things going out there. Folks, don't follow it. It doesn't matter. Who cares? Sure, I say this all the time. That's why they get these people. That's why they get these people who are overly political. You got to have somebody who's going to push the envelope. I mean, imagine Nancy Pelosi had never been Speaker of the House. Who would have thought to push things as far as she's pushed them? Nobody. That's why she shoved her way to the front. That's why under the old system, if you tried that stuff, people go, whoa, no, we don't do that. And they'd push back. That's why she's so important. So you get this guy, a guy who obviously has a past of being pro-Democrat and not just doesn't like Republicans, but I'm talking about tweets, makes it well known he thinks Republicans are Hitler, right? And, of course, he got no problem signing a warrant. A lot of people going, what's funny, here he is recusing himself in the suit that Trump has brought also in the Southern District of Florida, where Mar-a-Lago is situated. That's why they went to this court. You have to go to the federal court that's within the jurisdiction, which this one is, and he recused himself. Now, folks, that doesn't mean anything. That just means he either had a problem with Trump or he had a problem with Clinton. In this case, I'm guessing the reason he accused himself was with Clinton. He says, I can't be in a case where she's involved because I have ties with her, so I'm going to recuse myself. Oh, you bring me a warrant that says something about Trump? Oh, I got no reason to recuse myself with Trump, right? I don't have a problem there. So nothing to see there. And again, just a foxhole, nothing to see that. I mean, of course, the person that signed off on the warrant is going to be a pro-Democrat, anti-Trump person. And folks, we've been seeing this for a long time now. I mean, these judges, they'll do all kinds of stuff. All right, so Eric Trump tweeted this out yesterday. Breaking: Donald J. Trump is shattering all fundraising records. I'm told he's raised more money in the past 24 hours than ever before in recent history. The American people are pissed. Folks, you can never take your eye off this. They raised a ton of money. You think Trump raised a lot of money? How much you think the DNC raised? How much you think Biden raised? How much you think the people behind the real people that called on and made this raid happen, how much you think they raised? Now, folks, this is one of those situations where they're all sitting there smiling and they're happy. Everybody's happy because people are talking about Trump. And if they're talking about Trump and they're talking about this and they're pissed and they're giving you money, do you think people are checking in and seeing like, what kind of laws are y'all passing? What are y'all going to do to us? No, because we're focused on Trump. And so speaking of which, one of the things I did want to talk about, here's what's in the Inflation Reduction Act that passed, by the way, over the weekend, one of Kamala's soon-to-be record-breaking, tie-breaking votes in the Senate. Let's go check and see what's in it. Creation of a 15% corporate minimum tax rate. Now, folks, that basically means, long story short, I don't want to get into a sophisticated tax conversation. The point is here, what that means is now, whereas corporations had ways to defer taxes on certain things, they're now going to have to pay it. They are going to pass that cost onto you. It's just that simple. Now, again, I've talked about this before. If you're for a corporate tax rate, you're basically for taxes on all of us. The only reason it works is because people are dumb enough to think somehow you're not paying it. Okay, but anyway, prescription drug price reform. One of the most significant provisions of the Inflation Reduction Act will allow Medicare to negotiate the price of certain prescription drugs, bringing down the price beneficiaries will pay for the medications. Folks, this has been going on as long as I can remember, again, about 45 years or so. Okay, most countries do this. Traditionally, the USA hasn't. You know why? Because if you, quote-unquote, negotiate and say, oh, well, you know what? You seem to say you need $75 for insulin, but I'm going to negotiate the price. It's $35 now. So, yeah, that $40 delta, you're just going to eat it and make less profit. Sure they are. Sure they are. No, they're not. They're just going to go to another business. Well, Great American Mail. In Canada, they do that. In England, they do that. Yeah. You know where they get their drugs from? The USA. Which, again, we shouldn't allow Canada to do that. We shouldn't allow Britain to do that. But again, I get the idea. If you want to fix the problem, sure, fix the problem. But don't make the companies sell them to them for $35, or don't let the companies charge us a price that's unfair because they're only paying this. But to bring it to our shores, I just want you to understand what's going to go on. And again, it was pernicious. I didn't like the fact that Canada says a cheaper price, and then England says a cheaper price, and then the drug companies go, well, I got to sell it to them, all right, so I'm just going to have to raise it on the Americans. And then the American government, through Medicare and Medicaid, well, that's our money, folks, they end up having a power. I get all that, but there's another way you could do it. Just say, you know what, you can no longer sell that drug overseas to them. And they're still going to rug the price. There's ways to figure it out. But the way to not figure it out is to cap it here, because people are going to get out of the industry. And then guess what? And you mark my words, folks, whatever these drugs that they're negotiating and they're saying they're no longer going to pay for, folks, the drug company's going to stop making them, and eventually you got one choice. Either the government goes back and starts subsidizing again, so they'll do it, or the government takes it over and it makes it. And you think it's going to be more efficient? No, it isn't. All right. The IRS tax enforcement, the IRS has been sounding the alarm for years about being underfunded and being unable to deliver its duties. The bill invests $80 billion. I've heard more than that. All right, folks, let me tell you what's going on there. It's very simple. Have you noticed over, say, the 4, 5, 6, 7 years, you've had a huge growth in contract workers? You may not have noticed it, but think about it, folks. More and more people now sell stuff off eBay. More and more. I never heard of Venmo. Never heard of Venmo in my life 5 or 6 years ago. Now people are shooting money around all the time. All right? All right. What about DoorDash? Right? What about Uber? What about Lyft? All these things, they've come up in the last 5 or 6 years, haven't they? All those people are contract workers. Money is flowing to them. Are they reporting the money to the IRS? Are they paying the taxes on it? Okay, so here's what's going on. And I wouldn't be so concerned if you're a real estate agent or a small business person like me, who they've known about us for years. I've been audited 3 times, and they never get anything much. I mean, they get, here and there, we argue over it, but it's not a lot of money. They're not worried about us. We've been out there. They've known about us forever. They're worried about the new people. Now, this is why this could potentially be good, because when these people start seeing how people with power act, they're not very polite about it. They push you around, right? And they can be arbitrary in their decisions. They're gonna see how the IRS is, and this may end up not working out as well for the Democrats as they think. But that's what they're going after, folks. And again, I just want you to understand this, because a lot of people don't, folks. Income. Folks, this is the first day of tax in law school, which normally people take in the second or third year of law school. Okay, it's not a first year class. Okay, all income, no matter how derived, is taxable. I want you to write that down on a pad, put it up in your computer, and think about that. I don't care how you get it, all income. So if you decide to do a favor for a friend and they say, hey, yeah, you helped me in moving in my house, which I did about 20 years ago. My buddy helped me, and I'll never forget, as long as I live, he was leaving. He's a big fan of the show, by the way. He was leaving. He goes, my reward for helping you out with this is this watermelon. And he picked up a watermelon that was right by the back door, and off he went. And I didn't care. I mean, I would have given him more than that, because he helped me a lot to move in. But I want you to understand, all income, no matter how derived. That watermelon, I don't know what it was worth. Let's say it was worth $2, whatever. I don't know what a watermelon was worth. That's income. Did he report that to the IRS? I doubt it. But folks, I want you to understand that's how it works. That's income. They want their 50, 60 cents. And they want their Medicare, Medicaid, tax, Social Security, want all that, right? They want their cut. Now, you may think it's funny. You may laugh. I laugh. We all laugh. Well, that goes on here and there. Nobody's worried about that. And they aren't either. But when you start getting the Ubers and the Lyfts and the Venmos and the DoorDashes, and all of a sudden now you start to see there's watermelons moving all over the place. If we get a bunch of IRS agents and make people understand they better report that $2 watermelon, and then they need to send me my taxes, all of a sudden people are going to get a very rude awakening. Now, it may raise some money, and that's fine, but I think it's gonna back for them a little bit. Anyway, so there's also the ACA Affordable Care Act subsidy extension. I'll cover that one just real quickly, and then I'll come back to it. Then there's a whole bunch of climate stuff. That's just basically giving it to their buddies so they can turn around and donate back to us. We're going to end up with a lot more charging stations, a lot more automobiles on the road that don't do any good, because we still can't produce the electricity without the fossil fuels. You're not helping anything. But I want you to understand about the subsidy extension. So Obamacare is subsidized. So when you go and you buy, let's say your policy would cost you $600. If you're below a certain income, they will chip in so that when you look at it, it says it's $600. You put in your tax information, oh, you make below this much. And then all of a sudden, magically, the premium will go from $600 to $50. Well, that $550 is made up by us. And they've had, that's the way the system works generally, but they have more generous subsidies that always are supposed to expire, and we're basically re-upping it. And the reason I tell you that is to tell you this, okay? Obamacare was roughly 2008, 2009, okay? 2010, in that neighborhood. Folks, 12 years later, and those subsidies that were supposed to expire, they're never going to expire. Just want you to know that, okay? Also about the IRS, this is out there yesterday. large swath of the country left untouched and unmolested by federal power as long as they're consistent delivery for the Democrat Party. Folks, if you're watching it, if you're listening, I'll tell you, if you're watching it, you can see that. This is a map of where most audits take place in the USA. For those of you listening, just imagine the map of the Republican, where Republicans dominate, so the Southeast, right, and a little bit on the North. And basically, you'll see almost no audits in the upper area in the East and the Northeast and the Midwest, right, and in the far South over there, California, Washington. Few places in California, which, by the way, very, very traditionally Republican. And again, it shouldn't surprise you that happens. But again, folks, you need to understand at this point, you have two systems, and you're going to continue to have two systems until such time as people start actually enforcing the rule of law. So Nancy was out there. She made her Taiwan trip, and now they're out there pushing this CHIPS bill that they came out. Ostensibly, she's claiming that the reason she went over there was to promote this CHIPS thing because Taiwan is the biggest chip manufacturer in the world. That's why it's very, very important for everyone that they remain free. It's also why China probably isn't going to go after it, right? One, it would be a military excursion for which things might get out of control. Number two, the Chinese take a long-term view of things. They're not like us, very short-term oriented, right? So I don't think they're going to risk a war. They'll just do what they did with Hong Kong and let it sit out there for a while, and eventually they'll be able to get in there and take it over. But I want you to know I heard this over the weekend. Turns out that Pelosi's son accompanied him over there. So, folks, again, why does that happen? Why does Pelosi's son get a free ride over there on our expense? That should tell you something. All right, another story. Appeals court says House can obtain Trump's taxes from the IRS. A federal court of appeals, the D.C. Circuit Court of Appeals, probably the most corrupt circuit district in the country right now is the D.C. Circuit and District. I mean, it's just 99.9% Democrat, almost no Republicans, and they're just highly, very political. Largely in the Trump era, they've gotten that way. In a 3-0 ruling, the D.C. Circuit Court of Appeals is a blow to Trump, who has argued for years in court against releasing his tax returns to investigators. Folks, here's what's going on. The Ways and Means, which is basically the spending arm of the House, they don't need Trump's tax returns. If he did something wrong, its executive branch, the IRS, can audit him, which I'm sure they do all the time. And if he's a tax cheat, you can prosecute him. Why are they asking for an individual person's tax returns? Why is an individual person's tax returns important for any law Congress could possibly pass? An individual's tax returns. They aren't. It's purely harassment, okay? And only one judge in here, right, said it shouldn't be this invasive. You should have a higher standard. The other two said it's just fine. And you had a George Herbert Walker Bush appointee that agreed. Now, again, he can ask for en banc. He can ask for the full D.C. Circuit to hear it. I doubt they will. We'll see. But I just want you to know that's going on. And folks, I apologize. I said I would go back to Comey and explain Mar-a-Lago. It looks like I'm going to have to do that tomorrow because I don't have time to get to it. So a couple other things I wanted to get to. So here's partially why they're still going after Trump. This is Letitia James when she was running for office. Maybe it's not Letitia James when she's running. I don't know why it does. She started doing that recently where I'll have it queued, and then when I come to it, it's not queued.
Well, I'm not going to bother to register to vote because my voice...
It's weird. So now it goes back. All right. So a couple more things I can get to. We're almost done anyway. See if I can get to it. All right. Yeah. All right. So last thing I'm going to cover, I guess, and then tomorrow we'll start back and give you the history of Comey and how we got here. So turns out Ilhan Omar had a primary yesterday, and she ended up winning essentially 50.5% to 48% of the vote there in the Democrat primary in her district in Minnesota. Now, it's the 5th congressional district is heavily Democrat, so whoever wins this primary is going to win in the general. So she's going back to Congress, folks. Now, she defeated somebody who had been there, I think it had been there, a 44-year incumbent, also a Democrat. And the reason I thought this was an important story to tell you is a lot of the people out there that think that somehow what they're doing to Trump is going to get people to get better and get mad and get to the ballot and overcome these people it's probably too late. And the reason I tell you that is what you've got there is even the Democrat establishment, they see how Ilhan Omar is all about Ilhan Omar, and she's not about, the people of Minneapolis or Minnesota or anywhere near that, right? And so they ran a traditional, New Deal Democrat. He's left of left of left of left. He's just not a communist. And unfortunately now you've got too many people that vote based on the woman thing, based on the national origin thing, all this stuff that a black man running in that district can't defeat her. Okay, so I just want you to understand what I keep telling you. These people aren't voting on real issues. They're voting on identity politics, and it's going to get worse. Anyway, you're now all caught up to date of the news of the day, and if you like this live stream, I hope you tune back in tomorrow.